1. Epstein emails reveal a man connected at the highest levels of academia, the highest levels of politics, left and right, leaving the question obvious. Why? 2. Young women ready to flee America. Young men left with no one to marry. With the host of The Benny Show, Benny Johnson. 3. St. Patrick, as played by Desmond Eastwood, featured in Martin Scorsese Presents The Saints. Desmond Eastwood with us on St. Patrick. It is Will Cain Country on a Monday. Thank you for joining us at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel. Drop into the comments section, become a member of our community. Leave a comment, become a member of Will Cain Country. Become a member of the show, The Willisha. The Epstein email dump has been begged for, asked for, pleaded for, cajoled. You can't drop into a comment section on any article in modern-day politics. We could be going to war with Russia, and one of your top 5 comments would be, release the Epstein files. There could be a post at Fox News Instagram that alien warships are hovering over Manhattan, and one of the top 5 comments would be, release the Epstein files. Left and right. Silent for years. Now demanding the answers is the left. Last week, we got a dump of Jeffrey Epstein emails. And that has led to this from President Donald Trump. Posting on Truth Social, he said, as I said on Friday night aboard Air Force One to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide. And it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetrated by the radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our recent victory on the Democrat shutdown. The DOJ has already turned over tens of thousands of pages to the public on Epstein, and they're looking at various Democrat operatives. Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, Larry Summers, and their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. I don't care, all caps. All I do care about is Republicans getting back on point, which is the economy. As mentioned by President Trump, tens of thousands of emails released last week. What did we learn about Jeffrey Epstein? Story number 1. Silence for years, disinterest, ignoring, and purposefully quashing stories about Jeffrey Epstein. Now the left and Democrats think it is the biggest story in America. We know that this was quashed by mainstream media because there's a famous video of Amy Robach at ABC talking about the years she spent investigating Jeffrey Epstein, only to be mysteriously shut down. I know it's one of the most taboo subjects in the diet of media consumption in America. And it all points to one, not answer, but one question. Why? Why were Democrats silent about this issue for 5 years? Less curious is why Democrats have been carrying the torch over the last year when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. Because they believe that it incriminates their number one guiding light. They believe that their North Star will be exposed. They believe that it will show something about President Donald Trump. And it is true. In the tens of thousands of emails now released from Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump is mentioned thousands of times. And yet, amidst that deluge of references to Donald Trump, nothing incriminating about the president. Oh, Jeffrey Epstein goes on and on about the president. He's angry at the president. He hates the president. He thinks the president is stupid. He says that the president knew about the girls. He says the president is the dog that hasn't barked. But a lawyer involved in this case thinks that is a reference to Donald Trump ratting out Jeffrey Epstein to local police. Jeffrey Epstein is a noted liar, a fabulist, a criminal, completely irreputable, and yet still nothing incriminating Donald Trump. But it does raise some very interesting questions about other people, as referenced by the president. What about Larry Summers? In an article at The Guardian, in which the headline reads, "The Banality of Evil, How Epstein's Powerful Friends Normalized Him," David Smith writes, long after his conviction for sexual abuse, people in royalty, academia, business, journalism, and politics sought his ear. Why? This article by David Smith lays out name after name, famous person after famous person, powerful person after powerful person, in every walk of the elite circles of life, turning for counsel, using as their consigliere the already convicted abuser of underage girls, Jeffrey Epstein. He had a conviction for abusing underage girls in 2008. Over the subsequent 10 to 15 years, you can see maintained communication, maintained place of esteem from the likes, for example, of Harvard's Larry Summers. Let's walk through a few names, starting together with Larry Summers. Larry Summers is a noted economist. His name pops up in every administration advising Barack Obama and President Donald Trump. He's also a noted critic every election cycle, most notably of Republicans. He got in trouble, you'll remember, some years ago because Larry Summers said that women had trouble keeping up in the hard sciences with men. And in fact, that's one of the things that comes up with Jeffrey Epstein. Dave Smith writes in The Guardian, Larry Summers, who was Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton and later president of Harvard University, discussed his interactions with a woman, and Epstein offered coaching on his response, writing, "You reacted well. Annoyed shows caring. No whining showed strength." That's Epstein's coaching to Larry Summers. In another email, Summers opined, "I'm trying to figure out why American elite think if you murder your baby by beating and abandonment, it must be irrelevant to your admission to Harvard, but hit on a few women 10 years ago and can't work at a network or think tank." All caps. Do not repeat this insight. Summers turned to Epstein about how to approach women, how to deal with women, how to deal with harassment, how to deal with Harvard. Why? Why Jeffrey Epstein? Catherine Ruemmler, also a Democrat who worked as White House counsel under Barack Obama, sent a message to Epstein calling Trump, quote, "so gross." A portion of that message has been redacted, but Epstein replied, "worse in real life and up close." In other emails, though, With Ruemmler, Epstein detailed a whirlwind of well-known people he appears to be meeting with, hosting, or speaking with that week, including an ambassador, a tech giant, foreign business people, academics, and a film director. Quote, "You're welcome, guest, at any," said Epstein. Why? Why was White House counsel to Barack Obama so concerned with the scheduling arrangements and connected to and communicating with a convicted sex offender? Why was everyone so interested in Jeffrey Epstein? And by everyone, I mean everyone. Smith, again, catalogs in The Guardian. In several messages in 2018, Epstein advised longtime Trump ally Steve Bannon on his political tour of Europe. Bannon forwarded Epstein a news clip that described the German media as underestimating Bannon and saying he was as dangerous as ever. Epstein responded, "Love it." Epstein wrote that he'd just spoken to one country's leaders that we discussed, and we should lay out a strategy plan. How much fun? And here was advice Epstein gave to Bannon. If you're going to play here, meaning Europe, you have to spend time. Europe, by remote, doesn't work. It's doable, but time-consuming. There are many leaders of countries we can organize for you to have a one-on-one with. Bannon replied, "Agree 100%. How do I do that? Why?" You'll notice in these communications that Jeffrey Epstein speaks both in text and in email, very clipped. Love it, L-U-V-I-T. Half thoughts, quarter thoughts, quick responses. In fact, to show just how connected Jeffrey Epstein was all the way up until the end, all the way up until the end, long after, not just his conviction in 2008, but the revelations about who he was and what he was doing, he remained connected. And most notably, he remained connected with Democrats. Stacey Plaskett is the Democrat congresswoman from the Virgin Islands. There are suggestions and reporting that Jeffrey Epstein has been connected, of course, because island boy Jeffrey Epstein, to Stacey Plaskett. The Washington Post has a fascinating deep dive into Jeffrey Epstein's text messages, now that all this has been released, with timestamps, day and time. And, they noticed something fascinating. Some of these texts with Plaskett were at the very same time that Michael Cohen was being cross-examined by the House of Representatives. Plaskett is in the chamber. She is preparing to ask Cohen questions, and she's texting with Jeffrey Epstein about what to ask. This is totally fascinating. And two-a-days, I think you have a video. I mean, this is damning. This should be one of the top stories in America. In essence, Jeffrey Epstein was running a House hearing on questioning Michael Cohen. Watch this from the Washington Post.
This was when Barack Obama was president of the United States. And while we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way. Attorney-client privilege, yes, I will turn it over.
You, as my friend Mr. Meadows pointed out, misled this committee even today in a written submission that contradicted your testimony. You have suggested you are going to review that. Are you going to review it in our next break to correct the record, yes or no?
Yes.
Question, you helped out the president's campaign or were involved in the campaign as a representative, as a spokesman, even in your words today. It was your idea for the campaign dating back to 2011. Is that accurate, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Weisenberg and other individuals, Ms. Rona. Who are those individuals? Are they with the Trump Organization?
They are.
Are there other people that we should be meeting with?
So, Alan Weisselberg is the chief financial officer.
Uh-huh. You got to quickly give us as many names as you can so we can get to them.
Yes, ma'am.
Is Ms. Rona, what is Ms. Rona's position?
Rona Graff is Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
And would she be able to corroborate many of the statements that you've made here?
Yes, her office is directly next to his, and she's involved in a lot that went on.
Stunning. Jeffrey Epstein running oversight hearing, investigative hearing with Michael Cohen. So if you're listening on radio or on Spotify or on Apple, let me describe for you what you just heard. This was a C-SPAN video of Michael Cohen's testimony before Congress. During it, because the C-SPAN video is timestamped, and they now have Jeffrey Epstein's texts that are timestamped, here's what you couldn't see if you were listening. During the questioning of other congressmen, you heard Chip Roy's voice and a few others' voice there. You see texts going back and forth between Plaskett and Epstein. Plaskett looks down at her phone. It's all on video right there. It's zoomed in on her. So as the text comes in from Epstein, she looks down at her phone. And Epstein's like, ask about Weisenberg, ask about Rona. She responds, who is Rona? What is Rona? Is that an acronym? And he doesn't answer right away. And he says something else, I think, like leading her again in these half-clipped, half-thoughts, quarter-thought texts. And she goes, quick, I'm up next. What is Rona? And Epstein responds, that's his assistant, the keeper of the secrets. But one thing Epstein never says is Rona's last name. It's really fascinating. And she looks up, and it's her turn to question. And she says to Cohen, what about Weisenberg? What about Miss Rona? Alan Weissenberg and Miss Rona. She doesn't use the last name because she doesn't know. 30 seconds ago, she was concerned it might have been an acronym and not a person. And Cohen answers about Weisenberg. And she goes, and what about Miss Rona? Repeating, Miss Rona. He goes, oh, that's Rona Graff, his executive assistant whose office is right next to Mr. Trump's. And then a text comes in from Epstein. Good work. This is stunning. It's absolutely stunning. Jeffrey Epstein, member of Congress, owning members of Congress at the very least. But it's not just Bannon. It's not just Rommler. It's not just Larry Summers. Physicist Lawrence Krauss faced sexual harassment allegations. He emailed Epstein for advice on how to handle the journalist's inquiry, to which Epstein said, he asked Krause, did you have sex with the person in question? And then told him not to reply to the journalist. There's a ton of texts and emails about Bill Clinton. Other people saying, your boy Bill Clinton. I met your boy at Davos. Epstein saying something about Clinton. And back and forth, like Clinton and girls, and like it's all like a boys' club, and they all know each other. And we're supposed to just ignore, by the way, amidst all this, that Epstein has a painting of Bill Clinton in high heels and a dress? What in the world is going on? Physicists, Harvard presidents, Russian foreign minister Sergei Lavrov, Congress people in the United States, all turning to Jeffrey Epstein. Noam Chomsky, linguist, MIT, and political activist. Huge lefty. Artist, Andres Serrano. Peter Thiel. The names go on and on. The emails go on and on. And while there's nothing overwhelmingly incriminating about one particular person or another, and certainly not about President Trump, who only shows up in reference, not communicating with Epstein, there's so many questions like, what are they doing after he has been convicted of basically pedophilia, underage, sexual abuse in '08? Now he's a scandal. Now he's all over the news. What are they still doing turning to him for advice? It doesn't make sense. Jeffrey Epstein he's not Wall Street's #1 financier. He's not top 5. He's not top 10. What's going on? Why people, academics, finance, politics, are turning to Jeffrey Epstein? Why? That's the question, I think. Democrats have been asking for a long time. People in comment sections, release the Epstein files. So the Epstein files. We didn't care about it for 5 years, but release the Epstein files. Now you're getting the Epstein files. And as asked for by President Trump, you may get more when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. What are you going to do when you get all this and it doesn't lead you down the primrose path that you thought it did, and you get to finally get the boogeyman that you have associated for 10 years with everything bad about America? What do you get when you only get more questions? Why? With Jeffrey Epstein. Why are young women ready to leave America, and why are they not ready to get married to young men? Let's talk about that and much more with the host of The Benny Show, Benny Johnson, next on Will Cain Country. Fellas, good luck. Fewer and fewer ladies ready to get married, and fewer ladies even want to live in the United States. It is Will Cain Country, streaming at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page. Follow us at Spotify or on Apple. If they're already here, as they have been on several previous occasions, the fans of The Benny Show, we welcome you in to Will Cain Country, and we now welcome in your leader, Benny Johnson here, the host of The Benny Show. What's up, Benny?
A benevolent dictator, yes, of the chat. What up, chat? How we doing today? Will, I just got to start off the top of the dome, bro. Bro, I got to start off the top of the dome. Yeah. You did the world of service with your H-1B, absolute flamethrower, scorched earth salting of that program. That is a program that is destroying the lives of upwardly mobile Americans. It is a total scam. The O-1 visa is also a scam. But, bro, you had the balls to straight up say it. And so, like, hats off to you, man.
Well, thank you, man. I mean, I don't know what kind of balls it took, I guess, because because President Trump might not wanted to hear that in that moment, or, the current administration's not, I think, living up necessarily on that issue to the ideals of America first. But, this is a movement that I'm sure you and I know that I believe in, that has to outlast any one man. And the point of America First is to serve the interest, and I think the job and prospects and family life and future of Americans is at the core center of it. We're going to have to. We can't just import the world's, even their quote unquote best and the brightest, if Americans fall by the side of the road. And so we're going to have to fight. We're going to have to fight for, unfortunately, for some reason, we have to fight for Americans.
Yeah, my brother in Christ, some of these H-1B visas are for cashier positions. You're telling me that we can't get an American cashier?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was your first job?
Right.
I worked on a hog farm, and then I was a waiter. That's what I was doing in Shoeyville, Iowa. That's all you did do in Shoeyville, Iowa, where I'm from, like literal middle of nowhere. Cornfields, hog farms, trailer parks, man. That's what I did.
I did some landscaping, which you don't see many Americans doing landscaping these days. I did some of that. I mean, I can't pretend like I was doing it because, you know, I was scrapping around my first job. I was basically playing cowboy, but I worked on a ranch, one of my first jobs up in Montana.
That's awesome, man.
So, oh man, that's incredible.
That's the dream. That's the that's the dream. We'd have a totally different. I know we're going to talk about women and young men and them not wanting to have sex and get married and create lives and do the things that actually bring like actual eternal happiness. But bro, if we had more young men in this country that went out and did cowboying and learned ranch values and the values of farming. I wasn't a rancher, you know, I was mucking hog stalls, but still good, solid, salt of the earth work that you ache from when you're done, but it you know, you feel great and you've been out in the sun all day and you work with your body and your bones and you feel good about yourself actually. And you go in and you're like filthy, but you're filthy. And then more importantly, instead of seeing a bunch of like spreadsheets, you see that like a ton of crap, I'm going to try and be PG-13 here, has been like cleaned out of the stall. You can actually see physical accomplishments like building fences and stuff. That's so good for young men to just dig a hole or to do real work. It's so valuable for the soul. Young men need more of that, actually. A lot more of that. You know,
I agree, Benny. And it's funny you bring that up. One of the things I did in that year that I worked up there was build fences, you know, barbed wire fences. And by the way, some wood pin fences where you drive it into the ground with a pile driver. You dig a hole, then you drive it in the ground, then you fill the hole, then you stretch barbed wire. And the most physically exhausted I ever remember being was we had to buck bales of hay. So we did like 80-pound square bales for horses and mules, some alfalfa, some hay. And we weren't a fancy ranch, so, you know, you weren't picking them up with a tractor. You come along with a trailer, and then you get into the field, and you stack it onto the trailer. And so you're lifting 80-pound bales over and over, and then you stack it in the barn. I remember going home that day, rash all over my body, mostly my arms because you're wearing short sleeve, from the hay. My hands curled, like I couldn't uncurl my hands because you're grabbing baling wire all day long doing this with all that weight. And feeling pride. And I would be lying, like I don't want to over romanticize what I did because I wasn't doing this because I had to. I actually chose to do this because I knew I needed to, because of what you just said. You know, I am from a small town in Texas, but my dad was a small town attorney. I didn't have to get a blue collar job, but I knew that for my spirit, my soul, and to know what it's like to be a real productive person in this world, I needed to also know another side of labor, another side of work. So that's part of why I did that, Benny. Like, I needed that job. I wanted that job. I knew there was something missing from my soul.
There's a reason why men have always been gravitated towards manual labor, and still to this day, 90%, 99% of electricians and the guys who lay the power lines and the people who are engaging in manual labor are men, the guys that are out on those giant oil platforms in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, right? Like in the Bering Sea. Those are dudes, right? And there's something in your DNA, there's something in your bones, right? That say that I gotta go have that adventure, but more importantly, it'll be good for me. Does anybody really need to do that? I mean, that's a great question, Will. Like, you're like, I didn't need to do it because I had a good family. Well, actually, like, nobody actually needs to go out to the Bering Strait, right? And on those giant, you know, those huge 400-foot waves crashing against it, oil derricks. Nobody has to do that. Men actually want to do that, right? Just like nobody has to fly a fighter jet at Mach 10. Like you don't have to do it. You want to do it, in fact. And I think it's an important difference between men and women. I know that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today, but yeah. And it's good. Yeah. It's good. You have a better society when men own that. Exactly. You have a better society when men own that in themselves.
And you are around people that you need to be around in this world. The rancher that I worked for is the most important people in my life and very formative in my life. And you need to, that experience and also the way that I grew up in a small town, informs me a lot. Like you brought up H-1B. These are actually tied together because it informs who I care about, who I know, who exists out there in America and who is often forgotten in America.
Yes, who are talented, by the way. Yes, we have enough talent here, and all the data, by the way, proves that. All the data, the true data is horrific when it comes to the testing of computer programmers, for instance, from the third world versus American computer programmers and technical leads. Like Americans are so much better at these jobs, but they just command a living wage. And corporate America often likes and always has liked indentured servitude and slavery, and they hold the visas over the heads of what is a indentured servitude army. I would say it's immoral, actually. I would say it's the H-1B program and the IO program are morally indefensible. I've never heard anybody argue them because you can't.
So Benny,
you can't if you're leading a country. If you're supposed to be an American congressman, you're an American. Even if you're representing Silicon Valley, like you're still an American congressman, right? And you're supposed to represent the interests
elected by the American people
of Americans. And
yes, and
the H-1B program is designed in order to undercut and to destroy the American worker. It is an anathema to this nation. It needs to be cut out root and stem. It should be thrown in the fire, dude. Throw it into the fire, Frodo.
So the Benny Show chat and the Willisha commenting here on YouTube. Marilyn Neig says, so funny to hear these two talk about ranch life. I'm dying. And Alan Daniel says, I'm at work now, but Benny, yo ass don't dig holes, homie. You either will. It's true, Alan. Okay. And Marlin, I don't anymore. I can't claim it. That's a fact.
I think somewhere on some old cell phone device, I can show you photos of Farmer Benny. I was helping my buddy.
Next time you're on the show,
yeah.
I want you to bring those. Yep. I want you to bring those photos. I'll bring some ranch life photos. They're going to be, I'm so old, they're going to be physical. So I'm going to have to scan them into my phone or something. I'm going to have to take a picture and a picture of a picture. But next time we're together, Benny, bring those photos. Hey, before we get into the men and women thing, let's talk about your weekend. You were in New York. You were at the UFC event. You were hanging out. You were handing out shirts, Charlie Kirk, freedom shirts. Yep. How did that go?
Quite amazing. So I worked with Charlie for the better part of the last 10 years, and that dude was just fearless. And he was fearless in fighting the culture wars. And he understood, obviously, that politics is downstream from culture and that you have to be able to go into the heart of darkness. And he viewed the college campus as that, sort of the heart of the dragon of where these parasitic ideas germinate. Right? Like diversity is our strength, and we need infinity H-1Bs for cashiers, right? Like this all comes from the college campus, and so Charlie was omnipresent there, and obviously this is something that is his legacy. He died doing this. He died. He gave his life actually to try and speak truth to kids in very dark places. I still, to this day, I still get chills and goosebumps because he was answering a question about transgender violence when he got shot by a guy who has a furry transgender boyfriend. And now we just found out today that Thomas Crooks, Trump's assassin, also into transgender furry stuff. Like the simulation's broken, man. Something's wrong here. Something's terribly wrong. But maybe a topic for another day. The point is that Charlie was fearless, and he approached evil by confronting it. And I watched, and the entire country watched, New York, where an enormous number of your colleagues, I know we were both at the Patriot Awards a couple of, 2 weeks ago, maybe. And man, everybody watched that city, which is, by the way, America's capitalist epicenter, still to this day, changing fast. The Empire City. The cities whose skylines, of course, everybody know, it's iconic, and you'll never get another New York, and then it falls to communism, and it did fall. I mean, the mayor has a lot of power in New York City. They actually are they are a true dictator, not even benevolent. And so it's going to be bad, a really bad role, I think, for New York. And so we decided to go to Madison Square Garden and hand out Charlie Kirk freedom shirts just to be like, you know, this isn't going to deter us. People still want to be free because it's in our bones as Americans, like in our DNA. And not even I could have predicted the wild success this was. We've handed out 3,000 shirts in less than 60 minutes. They were going like, hotcakes. And the number one group that really wanted shirts were NYPD cops. It was amazing. Like everyone wanted shirts. Like people were coming up and everybody wanted a shirt. But man, the cops would go by and they'd grab like 3 of them and stuff them in like the pockets of their pants. They're the ones who are going to get defunded under Mondami, right? This guy's like defund the police radical. And so I guess it shows that there's never there's one. Charlie's legacy and the legacy of freedom stands strong to this day. And then 2, that there's no such thing as a place that's like truly lost. You should never give up on America or the American people. It was really encouraging to see. And then we went right afterwards into UFC and watched my boy, Bo Nickel, KO a dude with a head kick that you could hear out on the street. Probably made some of those cops jump with their freedom shirts on. It was so awesome. Bo Nickel, America First fighter. Such a badass fighter, big friend of the president, big supporter of the president, family, freedom, and all of the ideals that Charlie was espousing. So it was actually like a beautiful symphony of great Charlie legacy moments, and then to go in and see the Bo, who talks very openly about how much he loved Charlie Kirk and how much he follows the life, love, marriage, have a million kids. He does, in fact, believe in that and do that. And he said so when Joe Rogan was interviewing him after the fight. But man, he just yeeted a guy, and it was awesome. It's a great night.
Bo Nickel going to be on the Will Cain Show a little bit later today, 4 o'clock Eastern time. Make sure you tune in for that interview with Bo Nickel. Here is some of what Benny and our friend Jack Posobiec did outside of Madison Square Garden. Watch.
Yo, what's up, guys? You ever thought you'd see so many freedom shirts in downtown Manhattan? Madison Square Garden.
Ladies and gentlemen, Benny Johnson.
The boys are based. The boys
Ladies
are
and
based.
gentlemen, Benny Johnson. What?
We got UFC tonight, and we got freedom shirts out here. Look at this. We've handed out thousands of them so far. And ladies and gentlemen, they thought that they could run a communist and take over America's greatest city. No.
Last week, Benny, I took my son. I have one of these freedom shirts. I took my son to a Dallas Mavericks game. He's like, I want to wear that shirt. I'm like, cool. Grab the shirt, wear it to Mavericks game. And he got so many cool comments. People just kind of slyly walk up to him. Awesome shirt. Awesome shirt. That's in Dallas, Texas. I'm curious. Although that video reflects and the demand reflects a great amount of support for Charlie Kirk and the movement, it is still New York City. It's UFC, so it's a self-selective crowd, but it's still Madison Square Garden right there in Midtown. Any negativity, any pushback at all to this movement?
No. Not even from the people that you'd expect. No. And I'm not saying that there was 100% literacy from the people that were taking the shirts. Like, not every single one of them came up and said, yes, this is this is Charlie Kirk iconography, right? I think that it's just the message that resonated with people. There were a couple people that were wondering what's the catch, and the catch is that, like, you support freedom. And that's just bred in the bone here. It's in our DNA. And it's woven into who we are as a people, and it's woven into our heritage. And the heritage of New York City is the heritage of the American Revolution, some of the greatest Revolutionary War battles and achievements fought there in New York. And it's just nice to see it still alive today. What happens next? Unfortunately, for a place like New York, you got to just like suffer. And that's what needs to happen. And we all see what happens like between South Korea and North Korea. And I think you're going to have something similar like that in New York City. I think people are going to flee. I think you're going to have some major collapse there in the city. And, you're going to be able to see it. And then people end up changing their ways. There's no such thing as a permanent red state. There's no such thing as a permanent blue state. I think red states should understand that. Blue states should understand that. Texas should absolutely understand that, right? They want so badly to flip Texas purple. And so it's constant vigilance.
Do you think, Benny, before we start talking about some of the things that we both alluded to, we want to address here together, and that's the issue with men and women, what do you think about what's happening on the right? I think it's probably an overstatement to describe what's happening on the right as a civil war, but there's a lot of fractures developing, and the fractures are developing along a lot of fault lines. Those fault lines are in part, by the way, Charlie's assassination. They are in part Israel. They are in part policy, as we just discussed with H-1B visas. They are multitude. And it's largely an online phenomenon, and some of it is a cult of personality between personalities on the right. But it still is a little concerning about where this all heads. Can it stay together? Does it fracture apart? What do you make of sort of everything happening right now on the right?
I wish that I had printed off this chart. It's quite famous. Maybe your producers can pull it up. It has to do with the intellectual diversity of both movements, and it's a splatter of blue data points versus red data points. And I can show you with my hand. So this is the Democrat Party, right? It's this really tight cloister of what is acceptable ideas on the left. There is effectively just like a singular tautology, like a cult. It is like doctrinal, a Nicene creed of what is allowed on the left. And then you see the right, and it's like this at least 5 or 6 times larger intellectual diversity of opinions and viewpoints. And I think that that's good. And I think that what that's going to do is it's going to create Thanksgiving with all your drunk aunts. So our aunts have been like binging off box of wine, okay? And there are a lot of factions and a lot of different families at Thanksgiving in the Republican Party. And they're all drunk. And they're going to get in arguments. And they're going to fight. And this might be a little reductive, but what matters in the end is that we're family and that there is a winning coalition for President Trump that remains and stays together. Now, President Trump's winning coalition isn't just like a 2016 winning coalition where everyone thought it was a miracle what happened on election night. It was a dominant, all 7 swing state, popular vote winning 90% of counties in America coalition. And so whether you're talking about Israel or Ukraine or Maha, you're going to have like big factions that were pulled together in part because of Charlie. Charlie was the one who united the J.D. Vance and Donald Trump ticket, and then obviously the Maha moment. Charlie had sort of some force majeures with Elon Musk. I mean, think about the diverse. Like I know diversity is our strength. Well, this is kind of maybe proving it's not. Think about the literal diversity of the MAGA movement. It's wild, actually. And so you're going to have infighting. You're going to have that. And as long as it doesn't lead to disintegrationism, which is my major fear, then I think that it's healthy and it's good that people fight it out. And I'll end with this. Well, the disintegrationist is the thing that I fear the very most. And that happens because people crash out or get blackpilled over not enough focus on domestic policy. And the America First movement is about putting America first and making lives better for Americans, caring for your children first instead of the children of the rest of the world. And I think there's even some people inside of the administration that say that there has perhaps been a intoxicating elixir that happens when you inherit the world's largest military and all these military bases and all these embassies and all these interests around the globe, and every world leader is constantly calling you, that you can kind of get sidetracked. It's your reality distortion vector of Washington, D.C. And I think that they're now like righting the ship and like pulling everything back to domestic policy focused. And that's what America First is all about. So that's what you need to keep the coalition together.
I totally agree. That's the guiding light. That's the unifying principle. Just make sure you're constantly filtering everything through the prism of, does this serve Americans first? Yes. We talked about young men. You met a lot of young men outside of Madison Square Garden. Here's what we're talking about. This is a poll. It shows girls are now less likely than boys to say they want to get married. It's for one of the first times in American history, Benny. Girls in 1993, 83% said they wanted to get married, 76% of boys. Now, it's roughly the same for boys. 74% want to get married, and only 61% of girls want to get married. Let's just address that first. What do you think is the cause of that? Is that careerism? Is that Is that feminism? What is all of a sudden women not so interested in getting married?
Housing. Housing is the key to everything, Will. I know this is going to sound crazy and people make fun of me for it, but housing. So I go and I talk to campuses. I'm going to go to Clemson tomorrow. I was just at University of Florida. We were just at Auburn with 10,000 people in a stadium. And I asked the same series of questions. I asked the young men, yo, do you want to get married? Most young men want to get married. And by the way, the data that you just put up there proves it. The vast majority of young men want to be married. They raise their hands. And I say, do you want to bring your wife home to the frat house? Is that where you're going to bring her on your wedding night? And of course, everyone laughs because it's preposterous, actually. In the mind of young Americans, they're bringing their wife home, to their house, with a picket fence, and a yard, and door that locks to the outside world, to their castle. Now, no kings, actually, I agree with that. All men a king is what it was said, what Alexis de Tocqueville said about American men, that we are all kings, actually, because we all have our own homes. And I asked the women in the audience, I go, do you want babies? Do you want children? And, I get it that it's a turning point event, but the vast majority of hands shoot up in these young audiences, these young women, and they say, yes, I want children. I said, do you want to raise your kids in an apartment building in one room with like 100 strangers in that building, people's dogs pooping in the elevator? Like, do you want that? And of course they all, like, the women laugh because of that's insane. Like, of course, nobody wants that. These, like, women want to have children, but you have to be able to provide the conditions for this.
Right.
For the conditions for marriage, as poll tested with me a couple dozen times at campuses across the country, is that you have to make home buying affordable. If you can't buy a home, you can't get married, you can't get started in life. Women don't want to have kids, and they don't want to start that path with a man who can't do those things. So the average age, the most horrifying data point in the country right now for our nation, should be that the average age of a first-time home buyer is 40 years old, Will. Well, what is that? That's way past the window of optimum fertility for a woman. Women are well aware of this. I mean, you're buying a home for the first time and you're 40, that's past the window of time for being a young couple, being married, like having even the vitality to go raise kids and start a family. Nobody wants to really start a family at 40. Spoken by a guy who has a bunch of little kids, and I'm pushing 40, right? It's exhausting. But the point is that, like, if you steal away home ownership and the domicile, the domestic part of this, from American men, then you will have a catastrophic downstream effect on American women. And then they'll give up on marriage entirely. And they'll give up on childbirth because there's no men who have any houses, no men that can care for them. And one other, like, little piece of anecdotal data on this is, there was an account on X, I don't know exactly which one it was, but it was some, famous matchmaker lady who has some successful matchmaking business. And she's like, what is with these women these days? They're like totally okay with dating older men. They come to me, these young, beautiful women, they come to me and they say they're totally fine with dating these older guys in their 50s. And I've never seen that in 30 years of doing this. And I think that's because of the regressive and cruel policies that benefit the old at the expense of the young in this country, that we have created a gerontocracy here. And we've cruelly punished young people by pulling up the ladder, closing the door on the American dream for them, and that the road for that dream runs directly through homeownership. Always has, always will. And so it needs to be fixed. It needs to be changed now. Otherwise, you're facing civilizational collapse.
So I think everything that you said is true, and the math is fascinating on 40-year-old first-time home buyers. Is much too late to start a family. I totally agree with you that the American policies have been crafted to the benefit of older Americans. I do wonder about a bit of a chicken and egg effect on why people put off home ownership. Is it because they can't or because they don't grow up? Why they put off marriage? Is it because they can't or they won't cross over into adulthood. And I do think there's a problem with young women. We've seen the radicalization. We've seen the charts. Young men are actually getting more conservative. Young women are getting more liberal. I think a toxic combination of feminism, careerism, has left women very far to the left. And I think that's illustrated in this last thing I want to run by you, which is now 2 in 5 young women, so 40% of young women want to leave the United States permanently. That's women 15 to 44 years old, 40% ready to move out of the United States. Men of the same age, it's about 19%. And by the way, for those older people, women and men 45 and older, you're talking about 8-10% would move out of the U.S. permanently. So they have a real problem, young women, with their view of the United States, where they think we sit in the world, the type of freedom that we offer to people. And by the way, the defining issue for a lot of young women is often abortion. You should do a survey across the globe of abortion laws, including your beloved Europe. By the way, when people answer this question, they're not talking about moving to Brazil. They're talking about moving to Europe, almost invariably.
They're not talking about Bahrain, Will. They're not talking about going to Beirut,
right. No,
Will. Yeah.
No, they're not. You should take a look at abortion laws in these other countries. The United States is some of the most permissive abortion laws in the world. And I think this reflects as much, I'm hesitant to call it ideology, because I think it's more a bit of a neuroticism that they have been taught. We're all living in the Handmaid's Tale. And I think that's getting in the way of marriage. I think that's getting in the way of family building. I think that's getting in the way of, productive lives in the most productive and best country in the world.
True. I would never tell you if I was rich. If I ever strike it big, though, there will be signs, Will. And here's going to be the major sign. The Benny Johnson Scholarship for young, gifted women. Young, gifted left-wing women. It'll be my own H-1B program. Here's how it goes. I will fund any young woman, any of these young women in this chart. I will fund personally, out of my scholarship, their one-way ticket to a socialist or communist country of their choice. And they get a chance to pick. They can pick actually among the USECOs, just go in the bottom 50 countries, okay? Bottom 50% of the countries in the world. That's got to be like 75 different countries. You can pick anyone you want. I hope that you pick North Korea. I hope you pick Cuba. I hope you pick Venezuela. I hope that you go to Bahrain. But I will fund your one-way ticket there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a bunch of really smart people, maybe just an AI, that tracks how quickly those chicks are at the embassy, the American embassy, begging on their knees, like, please, God, let me back in. I'll do anything. I'll be a barista. I'll make your frappe. I'll make the special Christmas frappes for you. I'll write Christian Bible verses on your Christmas cups. It doesn't matter. Anything. I'll do anything. Let me back in. Like, that's what they'll say. I'll serve the patriarchy.
Here's how you fund that scholarship. Go to Kalshi, set an over-under. You and I can set an over-under right now. Is it 12 months? Is it 14 months? Is it 10 months? What's the over-under on the return to the United States?
Go! I'm telling them, go. You live in a free world. You live in such a mobile world. It's so, you can do it. I beg of you, go. Like, go see. It's been radicalizing for me to travel a little bit. I'm certainly not a world traveler, but I have been to Cuba, bro. I have. It was totally radicalizing. Never in my life. I have been to Haiti, right? And I have seen some of these countries that are in just complete collapse, and they're in our hemisphere. They're not even far from America. Like, they're really close. In fact, 90 miles off of the coast of Florida. And, it's barbaric, actually. And it was totally radicalizing. And I physically did this. I kissed the ground when I got back to America. I mean, I literally did. I was so happy. Not like Katy Perry getting off the Jeff Bezos rocket. Okay, that was something else. Next First Lady of Canada there, by the way, which is great. As if Canada hasn't endured enough humiliations. Katy Perry's going to be their First Lady. So good luck, Canada. Good for you, dating Justin Trudeau now. But yeah, like, go. I beg them to go. I will help them if I ever get rich.
Over to the chat and the militia. Patricia says, well, fewer and fewer young ladies have been taught how to be decent young ladies anymore. Sad to say. Build and Fix with Mooney says, Benny fan here, all caps. And S. Joe says, Benny left his show to come here. We followed. Love Will too. Well, we love having you over here. We love how you love the Benny Show, and thanks for joining us here on Will Cain Country. I didn't know that. Thanks for ending your show a little early, Benny, to make sure you can hang out with us. And we hope to see you soon, man. Thank you.
Stay based.
All right. Well, I saw Benny at the Patriot Awards. I said, man, how much are you lifting? You're getting jacked. He's like, oh, you wear the right things that covers fat. Bullshit. I've seen Benny. He's on it's been years now, some transformation. I want to know if he's doing testosterone, if he's doing something other than lifting. Maybe next time I'll get that clarified. Hey, by the way, speaking of young ladies, Bill Ackman, the noted financier, has some advice for you, young men, on how to pick up ladies. He's got one line. You run one line out there and see how it works. That and Desmond Eastwood, the star of Martin Scorsese's Presents The Saints. This one on St. Patrick. Desmond S. Eastwood plays St. Patrick. And he joins us next on Will Cain Country. We got it for you, boys. We got the one pickup line, the one way you can pick up ladies from noted financier Bill Ackman. Martin Scorsese presents The Saints, latest on St. Patrick. It is Will Cain Country, streaming live at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page, and we hope you will subscribe to us on Spotify or on Apple. If you're a big fan of The Benny Show and it's on at the same time, just subscribe to us on Spotify or Apple, then you can get us right afterwards. Or you can always get it on demand at Will Cain Country on YouTube. All right, Martin Scorsese presents The Saints up on Fox Nation. The latest episode is on St. Patrick. St. Patrick is played by Desmond Eastwood, and Desmond joins us now. What's up, Desmond?
Hey, Will. How's it going, man?
Good. Glad to have you on the show, in the studio in New York. I saw you this morning on Fox and Friends. So, what's it like to play a saint?
Oh, yeah, it was an incredible experience. What an honor, and big shoes to fill. But, yeah, it was incredible, What an honor. As an Irishman particularly,
Get out of here. You're an Irishman? Never would have guessed. No, I ask you that question, what it's like, because here's what I would think, okay? You get a character. The more layers and more complicating factors to that character, almost the easier it is to play him. You can find the humanity in him. You can find the interesting angles to him. When you go back in history, that gets harder because people get flattened out the further back you go in history. Then you take a saint, and that is somebody not only flattened out, but deified, like lifted up into a symbol, into something far beyond the man. And when it comes to saints, there's ways they become saints. We get that. And a lot of that has to do with their suffering, their trials, their humanity. But I wonder if that's a really difficult concoction to dive into. Like, I would have to imagine one of the most difficult characters to play would be Jesus, God bless Jim Caviezel or anybody else. You're given Jesus? Like, how do you play Jesus? And not far down the list below that would be playing a saint.
Of course, right? Yeah, I totally agree, because everyone has such an expectation or an interpretation in their head of who that person might be, and everyone will have a very different viewpoint, So, but luckily for St. Patrick, he wrote a confessio towards the latter years of his life, so that was a good sort of staple grounding and something concrete that you could sort of rely on, and it really humanized him. He was so full of doubt and fear and feeling very inadequate and unable to do it, which was very, very human. So it was great to rely on that, and not just pure conjecture and myth and ethos and legend.
And how does that work for you on the research side? Did you read that book? Like, how do you go about researching for the part?
Yeah, I read it continuously, and it was a great exploration for me. I didn't know much about St. Patrick, to be perfectly honest, before doing it, and it just so happens, again, there's some conjecture as to truth, but they think he spent a lot of his time around Downpatrick, which isn't too far away from where I live, so I was able to go, to his proposed grave and, the first church that he built in the north of Ireland, the Church of Saul in Downpatrick. So there was a lot of sort of exploration in that way, but yeah, I read that material over and over and over again and spent a lot of time, in the beautiful nature of Ireland, because obviously a lot of his life was through isolation and solitude, which is where he really developed his relationship with God and strengthened it there. So it was really helpful to be out in nature as much as possible and just, just ruminate and just think about it as much as you can and let it absorb, as much as you could with the time that you were given.
Oh man, that's interesting to me because again, so you're given a historical character. The instinct, and I don't think it's a wrong instinct, it's part of the recipe, I would think, is to dive into the historical fact, to learn the life of the man you're about to play. But beyond that, again, you've got to embody him. So going out, as you described it, you go out into nature, you ruminate, you connect, you find inspiration. And in this case, again, finding inspiration for somebody is one thing. I would think in this case, you've got to find the spiritual connection, the spirituality of St. Patrick.
Of course, and the big challenge with that was, you go on a journey with Patrick, and when you first meet him, he really wasn't that religious at all. If anything, he had no connection to God, and he talks beautifully about, when he was first there, he was like a rock deep in the mud until God kind of released him from that mud and put him on top of the pile. And it was through his sort of hardship and in captivity and slavery, he felt it was adequate punishment for the life that he had been living and not being true to God. So it was a real, transformation in terms of almost like a complete U-turn. But, we had, we shot this thing in like 8 days. So to do that and go through so many years of his life and try to, do that transformation and embody it, that was sort of a challenge. But we had I'm not sure if you've seen any of the images or anything, but the makeup and the hair and the beards and everything, it was extraordinary, really helpful.
Well, I did see a scene, I think it was on Fox and Friends this morning, they played a scene, and I mean, the story, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, there's always going to be conflicting testimonies on what happened or competing theories on what happened, but the story is that, Patrick was kidnapped into slavery from Britain, late stage Roman Britain, taken to Ireland by raiders, lived there for 6 years, I think as a herder, right? Working.
Yeah, a shepherd essentially,
And then he escaped.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then escaped.
Yes.
Escaped 6 years later back to Britain. And then when he finds God, he decides to go back to Ireland. He goes back to the place that kidnapped him and spread the word of God.
Yeah, again, he has a beautiful line, he found his salvation in the land of his captivity, which is beautiful, and it echoes back to that thing of like, through pain and hardship and really terrible things, something really amazing came out of it, and, we're here today talking about him, 1700 years later, which is, pretty incredible.
You're Irish. Look, I didn't grow up Catholic. I'm from the middle of America. Catholicism, not quite as predominant as it is on the East Coast of America, places like New York, where there's large Irish and Italian populations. But, for not for better, for worse, St. Patrick in a lot of places in America is reduced to a day where everybody drinks green beer, and things like that. But I would imagine, growing up in Ireland, he maintains a much more significant place in your consciousness.
Yeah, for sure. Yes and no. I do feel like it was similar in Ireland. It's St. Patrick's Day, it's celebrated on the 17th of March, and everyone has a bit of a yo-ho and drinks lots of beers and dances late into the night, Whereas why it's great to tell these stories and really get back to the truth of who he was as a man and, the message that he sort of lived for and what he died for. And hopefully it raises awareness to the man, to everyone.
That's interesting that it's like that even in Ireland. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I did not know, even myself.
Let's talk about...
Even myself coming into this, I just naturally assumed St. Patrick was born in Ireland. Like, I didn't even know that. So there you go.
Yeah. Let's talk about this part. I read this part, that you auditioned for this role while in Morocco traveling around the Atlas Mountains. So tell me what does that mean? You auditioned while you were there, like into your phone? How do you audition so remotely in some place for something like this?
Yeah, so a lot of the times, I don't know if it's also partly to do with COVID, but it also depends what stage of you are with your career and stuff. But very often now you're invited to audition via self-tapes, which is almost like a first round of auditioning. And then if people like you, they want to see you again, then you'll meet them in person or you'll do recalls or chemistry reads. And So yeah, I first heard about it when I was doing the 7 summits in 7 days in the Atlas Mountains. Shout out to a great mountaineer, Jason Black. But yeah, that's how it went about. So I don't know if the earthiness and the mountainous quality maybe settled me a little bit and grounded me for Patrick, you know.
Oh, that's awesome. And then my guys tell me you have a good story about first meeting Martin Scorsese?
Yeah, I got to meet him on Monday night, which was incredible. You know, we did it like a screening, and there was a big sort of Q&A afterwards and a bit of a cocktail party. But straight after the Q&A, he'd kind of slipped off, and I almost thought, you know, I wasn't going to meet him. And then almost in a movie sense, it was that moment of like, oh, the president would like to speak to you now. You know, I got to go into a back room, and he was having a nice dinner, and yeah, we had a little conversation. It was lovely, you know. What an honor. Is yeah, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, you know, and his contribution to the world through his art is, you know, incredible. So it was a really, really cool moment for me personally, you know.
Did he ask you your favorite Martin Scorsese movie?
He didn't. Yeah, actually, he didn't. But I'm aware, and I'm hoping in a few movies' time, he might be adapting David Grann's amazing novel about like a big shipwreck. The Wager, it's called. So
The Wager.
Yeah, I would love
read it.
I'd love to try and get a wee audition for that maybe in a couple of years' time.
Does he have the rights to that, by the way? David Graham, by the way, I've read several of his books. He's got I think he's the Lost City of Z as well. I think that's Graham did that one.
I think you're right, yeah.
But I love shipwreck movies, and I love the age of exploration, Desmond.
Yeah, me
so
too.
I've read a lot of books, and I love the movies about. I mean, by the way, reading The Wager, you know, I romanticize it. There was freaking nothing romantic about it. Like there was a little part of me. It's like maybe it'd be awesome to go back in time and be one of these explorers on a ship. No,
Yeah,
it wouldn't.
of
It's
course.
effing
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
And you're gonna die of scurvy. Most
Yeah.
likely, you're gonna die of scurvy. So, which
Yeah.
is an awful death, by the way.
Yeah.
Awful death. But The Wager is an awesome story of a shipwreck on the western side of South America. 2 ships, I believe, ultimately. And these guys are stranded on the western side of South America. They basically have a mutiny. They get into war with each other. One group gets back to safety, tells a false story, and the second group, against all odds, actually makes it back as well.
Yeah.
It's an awesome book.
Yeah, all those exploration ones, even, you know, Shackleton and stuff, they're so incredible, but that's why I would like to act in them. I don't want to, you know, I'd like to come back to the warm, cozy trailer and get a hot chocolate or something. But yeah, I think he's been attached to that one for a while. But I know that's obviously not his next project. But yeah, hopefully it gets made because it's a remarkable story, you know.
Truly, truly. Well, good luck with that. Yeah, I hope you get it. I will be in line to get the ticket for that movie and promote it, by the way, right off the bat. Well, this is awesome talking to you, Desmond Eastwood. Check out St. Patrick, Martin Scorsese's presents The Saints at Fox Nation. Thanks for your time today, Desmond.
Thank you, Will. Take care, man.
Okay, there he goes, Desmond Eastwood. By the way, wait. Before he goes 2 days, that's, I'm so bad at this. That's regular Irish, not Northern Irish accent. Right, Desmond? Like, where are you from in Ireland?
I'm from the north of Ireland, near Belfast.
Oh, so that is a Northern Irish accent.
Yeah,
Yes.
mine.
Trust your instincts, Will.
Yeah. You've been, obviously, to Ireland, right?
No,
No,
I've never
never?
been. I just
Oh.
watched a lot of Liam Neeson movies.
Oh, yeah. I did one with him a couple of years ago. I was actually speaking to Scorsese about that a little bit. But, yeah, Liam Neeson, what a hero, man.
What'd you do? The Banshees of Inisherin or whatever?
No, we did a movie
Did you do that
called
one?
In the Lands of Saints and Sinners with Carrie
I've seen
Con. Yeah. So
I've seen it.
I played the young sort of awful little brother who abuses the 13-year-old girl, and then Liam Neeson catches wind of it, and then, you know, it's only going to end up for me one way after that. So, but yeah, it was an incredible experience.
yes.
Yeah.
So I got that confused. That's the one I was thinking of. The Banshees of Inisherin is Colin Farrell. And
But
is it
Carrie
Brendan Gleeson?
Condon's also in that. She plays the sister in that, and she was in The Saints and Sinners too. But yeah, that's a Martin McDonagh movie, Banshees of Inisherin. It's excellent.
All right.
Yeah.
I brought him back just for those things. Thank you again, Desmond. I
Take
appreciate
care.
it. There we go. I should have known it was Northern Irish. Okay. Before we go today, Two-a-days Dan, a tinfoil Pat. Let's do a quick version of final takes. Tinfoil Pat, do you want to take it away? Because you want to talk about Texas. I know you want to rub in the Longhorns, and I'm going to let you. I don't want to rub in. Let's do this because yeah, you do. And I'll tell everybody about your text. Your text totally pissed me off on Saturday, and we're going to talk about it. You were in that I'm going to get fired range again on Saturday night. But before we get to that, Bill Ackman, as promised, has the one line you young men need to pick up young ladies. All right, here it is. You know Bill Ackman, right? Noted New York financier. I hear from many young men that they find it difficult to meet young women in public. In other words, the online culture has destroyed the ability to spontaneously meet strangers. As such, I thought I would share a few words that I used in my youth to meet someone that I found compelling. Okay, everybody hooked? Here we go. Bill Ackman's going to tell you how to get the ladies. I would ask, quote, "May I meet you?" before engaging further in a conversation. I almost never got a no. It inevitably enabled the opportunity for a further conversation. I met a lot of really interesting people this way. I think the combination of proper grammar and politeness was the key to its effectiveness. You might give it a try. And yes, I think it should also work for women seeking men as well in same-sex interactions. Just 2 cents from an older, happily married guy concerned about our next generation's happiness and population replacement rates. May I meet you? So this has spawned a lot of mockery online. People posting the reaction you're going to get if you walk up to a lady. May I meet you?
What does that even mean? You're meeting them there right now.
It's proper
I think
grammar.
further meeting them.
I said that to my wife when I met her on a dating app. May I
meet you?
Yeah.
Well, apparently it works, I guess.
Yeah, it works. Now we're married.
You found your wife on a dating app?
I did. I was very against it for a very long time. I was always like meeting in person. I loved it. I couldn't do the online dating. I finally tried it. I was on it for 3 weeks and met my wife.
So, first of all, I think everybody's mocking him, but the spirit of what he has to say is actually right. I think that there is a confidence and a boldness in just walking up to a stranger that you have some reason that you want to talk to more. Let's be real. It's going to be physical attraction. It has to be at that point. You haven't yet spoken to them.
Love's not blind.
And you go up, and I do think that, you know, it doesn't matter what you bat. Like, you're not trying to make the Hall of Fame here. You don't need to bat 320. You could bat below the Mendoza line, and it's going to be okay.
You're still meeting somebody.
If you can maintain some confidence.
You have a point.
It's all numbers.
You'd be batting 0.05.
It's all about volume. Be Antoine Walker, right?
And I think Patrick, I think it's counterintuitive. You would think if I get shut down 8 times in a row, that's going to destroy my confidence. Maybe. However, I think you also learn it's not the end of the world. So you get calloused a little bit and more bold. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I think the guys that are trying to bat 1,000 are taking, and so they're sitting on the sidelines because you can't risk the strikeout.
No one likes it.
But you got to understand, you're going to strike out. You're going to strike out, right? Nobody bats 1,000. You're not, to mix sports metaphors, Tom Brady. Tom Brady probably would bat 1,000 in the bar scene right now, right? So that's...
Not if you're from New York.
You think he wouldn't?
750. I don't know. I bet you one. Not everybody's for everyone. You
have to accept rejection. Someone gave me that great advice when dating. Accepting rejection and making it okay with yourself, like what you're saying with batting average, that helped me so much with talking to people, even in business.
And by the way, how you handle the rejection actually dictates the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like with her. I'm not saying you'd be one of those guys that ignores the rejection. You don't do that. But you don't protect your fragile ego. You don't walk away, dart eye contact. Don't do that. Yeah. Don't do any of those things. Yeah. You can say, well, you're making a big mistake. May I meet you?
Is that your line, Will? Make it a big mistake.
I think that's not the right line. All due respect to Mr. Ackman, I don't think that's the right line. May I meet you?
Might have been 40 years ago.
Say what up.
Hi, how are you?
What's your Instagram?
I think "Can I buy you a drink" is really, really good because it says what it needs to say. Do you know what I mean? Like, she understands what that means.
Yeah.
Did Desmond forget something in the studio?
I think he forgot his coat. There we go. Can't leave without your coat. It's cold out there, buddy. See you, man.
By the way, you have that accent in an American bar, you could walk up and
handsome.
say, "May I meet you?" or anything else. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Your batting average is going to go up.
He said this is his first time in New York City, and he's been having a great time, and I'm sure.
I bet. Anyway, we got to workshop the line. But the instinct is right. The line starts with the eyes. The eyes are telling you a lot. Before you even, go to the plate, you can see what pitches the pitcher is tipping. You can see. I think the eyes will tell you a lot.
Confidence, baby. Got to show it.
Yeah.
It works. Not cockiness, confidence.
Yep. I don't have a good line, but I would like to talk to you.
Just go meta with it.
Yeah. All right. Quickly, final take. So Saturday night, the Horns. We don't need the sounder for this. The Horns get beat by the Georgia Bulldogs, and Dan started it off. You guys really irritated me, and then I find out later Patrick wasn't even watching the game.
I know.
The texts come in. Y'all talking about how bad Arch is,
I said
how
it
rough
looked
he is.
rough.
I'm like, are you even watching the game? What are you even watching the game? Like, Arch was the best player for Texas. Arch was good. Arch is progressing. I now believe that next year, legit one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And if he could keep it going this year, Texas would be, well, they're already at 3 losses, but they'd be much more dangerous. I think they still are dangerous for Texas A&M the night after Thanksgiving. But Arch's this is what I would challenge you to do when you watch a game. Watch his head. His head is downfield going through progressions. He still misses passes. His deep ball's not that pretty.
He overthrows a lot.
He throws the ball too hard. But he was totally let down. There was like 5 drops in the first half by his receivers.
Easy ones.
And I got into a big debate with my friends afterwards that this is on coaching. This was on Sark. He got completely outcoached. And then some of my friends got super defensive of Sark. And maybe they have a point that I'm comparing him right now to the best. There is no doubt that Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football. He is so good. He is so good.
He's no Brian Kelly, but,
Kicking an onside kick when you just went up. When you're up 11 in the, what was it? Was it the beginning of the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
I mean, it was over after that.
Yeah.
It was over after that. And yeah, I mean, and Sark didn't have his team prepared. There was 9 penalties, I think, in the first. Was it in the first half or 7 penalties in the first half? And I don't know how many for the game total. Like, the team was just killing Arch. Blown assignments in the secondary,
Offensive
penalties, drop balls. When it's that dispersed, this is what I got in an argument with my friends about. Like, the players have to play. Yeah, but when there's that many problems coming out of a bye week, I think it's coaching. I think that is coaching. You did not have your team ready. Do you guys disagree with that? Like, there is a line where it's the player's fault, but when it's that diffuse and that much, I think it has to come back to the coaches.
I always wondered how much coaching in college football came into it. I mean, it's a lot, but it's a lot on just talent, just straight up talent. So I don't know.
We're debating it a lot.
I don't think the talent gap between this was a debate. Like, Emmanuel Acho got into this too, this was the talent gap between Texas and Georgia is not as great. It's not that great. There is one. Georgia is more talented, but not that great. They're both spending a ton of money. There's guys saying the Texas players are playing for paychecks and the Georgia players are, under Kirby Smart's inspiration, playing hard to win. And that's why I keep coming back to coaching. And by the way, that doesn't mean fire Sark. That's not what that means. It just means there's a gap. And I don't even know who's close to Kirby Smart. I don't know. I don't think Marcus Freeman's on his level at Notre Dame. Maybe Kurt Cignetti at Indiana. We'll have to see when it matters.
I mean, peak Lane Kiffin.
You know, Lane Kiffin's up there, man.
Yeah.
If Sark is the 8th best quarterback in the country, coach in the country, what I'm telling you is there's a big drop between 1 and 8.
For sure.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like little incremental drops. It's a big drop. All right.
Are you giving
that's
up
going to do
hope
it for me
the
today. We'll be
playoff?
back again tomorrow. Oh, you want to have that debate? You think?
I'm just curious. Because like they've been pushing it. The narrative has changed to where people are saying, "Hey, Texas, even with a loss against Georgia or Texas A&M, you win Texas A&M, people are saying you'll get in."
I want to just to make your freaking new haircut head explode. I just want you to spin off into chaos and lack of self-control. That describes this show. A show that will be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll see you again next time.